Welcome to this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on functionalist theories of crime and deviance, looking at the work of Robert K. Merton. Robert King Merton was one of the most influential sociologists of the functionalist movement, in no small part due to his internal critique of functionalism, and particularly the concept of universal functionalism. Merton suggested that dysfunction existed in society, unlike other functionalists, and this formed part of his views on the role of crime and deviance. He suggested that there was structural inequality in society, and this, combined with the insistence of promoting the American dream of wealth and power, led to a strain to anomie, in other words, deviate from the norms and values of society. The American dream, according to Merton, was shared by most Americans. However, society did not provide clear guidelines on how to achieve this dream, and as such, this would inevitably lead to criminal and deviant behaviours. Merton suggested that this strain to anomie would lead to different reactions from different people. Some would accept the idea of the American dream, and others would reject it or replace that ideal with an alternative view. Those who accepted the social goal of the American dream would strive to achieve it, either through legitimate means, hard work, education, social networking, whilst others would turn to illegitimate means, that is, crime. Those that rejected the American dream would also react in different ways. Some would continue to do what was socially expected of them, whilst others would deviate. For those selecting an alternative goal, this meant adopting new means, both legitimate and illegitimate, of achieving that goal. Merton categorised these 5 different adaptations to strain: conformity, innovation, ritualism, retreatism, and rebellion. Whilst some encouraged deviance, others relied upon conformity and maintaining social norms. Merton categorised these on the acceptance or rejection of society's goals, and their use of legitimate or illegitimate means to achieve those goals. We'll look at each of these adaptations in more detail. Firstly, conformity. Merton saw this as being the response of most Americans to strain. It involved accepting the American dream of wealth and power and actively pursuing it, by working hard, getting good grades in school and gaining qualifications, and choosing pathways that were approved that would lead to success, in other words, through legitimate means. The second adaptation was innovation. Merton suggested that this adaptation to strain accepted the socially approved goals, but instead of working hard and gaining qualifications, innovators would instead choose illegitimate means of achieving the American dream. This was due to opportunities being blocked, but innovators maintained a desire to still achieve the American dream, and so they adapted. They innovated and adopted illegitimate, often criminal means to obtain those goals. Now we can look at examples of organised crime syndicates and white-collar criminals and corporate criminals as examples of innovation, but mostly this centred on criminals who were focused on utilitarian crimes, those that provided a financial gain, so for example robbery. Amongst those that had rejected society's goals were the ritualists. These people had accepted they were unlikely to achieve the American dream of wealth and power, but were content to conform to society's norms and values. They continued to adopt a legitimate means of gaining wealth and power. They worked hard, they gained qualifications, even though they knew it was unlikely to lead them to their goals. Examples of ritualists can often be found in routine occupations, administrative roles, middle management. Another group that rejected the socially approved goals of society were retreatists. Seeing their opportunities blocked, retreatists would also reject the legitimate means of achieving the American dream and effectively drop out of social norms and values. Their lack of motivation to conform would lead them to drug and drink abuse, petty crimes and vagrancy, as they adopted illegitimate means of getting from one day to the next. The final adaptation was rebellion. Those who adapted by rebelling challenged the socially approved goals and looked to create alternative visions of society. They rejected the legitimate means of achieving goals and instead adopted alternative methods of achieving their own version of society. Merton included political dissidents, activists and protesters in this group, and considering the social and political disenchantment in the USA at the time of Merton's writing, the 1930s, examples of this group could be found amongst the backdrop of economic turmoil after the Great Depression. A positive evaluation of Merton's strain theory is that it recognises the role of structural inequality in crime, and highlights how the lack of opportunities can impact on different social groups, and this idea was taken up by other functionalists such as Albert Cohen, who looked at how structural inequalities and blocked opportunities can lead to the formation of delinquent subcultures. We can also ask whether the American dream, or indeed any form of consensus norms and values, are what people aspire to in the 21st century. With the fragmentation of social norms and values, is the concept of strain still relevant? Or do people have individual motivations for behaviours rather than socially approved goals like the American dream? And finally, whilst Merton's theory offers a rational explanation of why people may commit crimes for financial gain, it doesn't explain crimes of passion or crimes where people choose to victimise or act violently against somebody else. So it can be argued to be limited in explaining the broad spectrum of criminal and deviant activities. That concludes this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on functionalist theories of crime and deviance, focusing on Robert K. Merton's strain theory. Thanks for watching.